Okay, so you can see my screen now. 1 second. Fine. So today what we'll discuss about the auto scaling. So before we are doing the lab class, before we are working and setting up the auto scaling group, and we see how the auto scaling the real time it works. Okay. So before that we need to understand first what exactly the auto scaling is, what the meaning of scaling. Okay. So uh, what is exactly the auto scaling and what feature being provided by AWS. So autoscaling is a way to automatically scale up or down. So the name is automatic. The name itself is the definition is there in the name itself because it's called auto scaling, automatically scale. So auto scaling is a way to automatically scale up or down the number of compute resources that are being allocated to your application based on its needs at any given time. Okay, that means whenever you need any resources, it will be automatically added to your computing resource. So the computing resource could be your new server, could be your storage, could be your memory. Okay, so whatever you want, that can be automatically added or removed in your server or in your computing resources. So what happens? It helps you to ensure that you have the correct number of Amazon EC2 instances available to handle the load for your application. So tell me a scenario where you will fit this auto scaling in your project or in your organization or in your applications. In what scenario you will fit this auto scaling group? Okay, so whenever you need, you have an application. Suppose you have your company provides or has the e-commerce applications, and you need that applications are actually fetching multiple customers from India, only targeting in India, suppose. Okay, and suppose due to some festivals and number of resources sometimes get increases. So what will happen? To handle the number of resources, you should have the right or sufficient amount of resources, resources in the sense computing power, to handle the customer request. Okay, so all the time you cannot manually add the resources, because manually adding the resources will take quite some time to reflect and to give the response back to the customer. It will take some time. Sometimes you may face some downtime also, right? So using this auto scaling group, you can need automatically scale up if there is more resources is required to be added. Okay, if you want new server to be added, like scale in, okay, that will be scale in whenever you want new server to be added. And if the demand decreases, okay, if the demand increases, you can scale in new server. If the demand decreases, you can scale out the existing server from the resources whenever there is a demand decreases. Okay, and if you want new storage, more storage to be added, more memory to be added, right? You want to scale up your resources, you want to scale up your computing power, you have to add more storage automatically, so that it will be scale up. And if you want to make down, so automatically it will get down, like it will be scale down. So just remember about these two words: scale up, scale down, and scale in and scale out. Okay, so that is okay, that is what the scaling in and scale out happens. But we need to understand the auto scaling, what is the features and the components of the auto scaling, what are the different components of the auto scaling. So we can see here auto scaling has different components like groups, configuration template, and scaling options. So these three actually very like common in auto scaling group, in auto scaling options actually. And you have to just remember, you don't need to remember. Whenever you just open this auto scaling options, you'll automatically find all these components available. Okay, so what exactly this group is, auto scaling group? Because whenever you are going to set off any auto scaling for your application, you have to set up a auto scaling group first. Okay, so auto scaling group is nothing but is EC2 instances are organized into groups so that they can be treated as a logical unit for the purposes of scaling and management. When you create a group, you can specify its minimum, maximum, and desired number of EC2 instances. Okay, what is this? Specify its minimum, maximum, and desired number of EC2 instances. So, group will allow you to set off what number of resources do you need, and it will allow you to set up the minimum, maximum number of EC2 instances. Like if you need minimum of 2 instances all the time should be running, minimum 2. And suppose you need desired also 2, or desired you need 3, we need 3 instances will be running all the time. And maximum, it can be up to 10 EC2 instances or 10 servers. So you can set up the limit of minimum and maximum in the groups. I'll show you in lab class how to set up these groups and all. Then the other thing is the configuration template or the launch template. We already have discussed and already have seen the usage of the launch template, how to use the launch template and set up the launch template for configurations, and use the template to create the EC2 instances. The same launch template we are going to use in our auto scaling group. So whenever we need to scale up something, this template will be used to create similar kind of resources for us. Okay, and the scaling option is nothing but the options. What are the options do you need to choose and to allow your auto scaling to perform? Auto scaling provides several ways to scale your auto scaling groups. For example, you can configure group based on the occurrence of specified conditions. Okay, there are multiple scaling options available. There are multiple scaling options available, and we'll see what are the scaling options need to be fit for your applications, that you have to understand. So now let's see what are other things are what are the other options available, the complete details of the scaling options. Like we can manually set off for the maintain the current instance levels at all times. Like you'll just set off for 4 number of instances will be running all the time. So that means you will just set off the 4 number of instances all the times it will be running. So you have to maintain the current level of instances all the time, and scale manually. If you want to scale something manually, so you can set up scale manually to manually scale up the server. Okay, so manually scale up means, so if you want to increase some servers, if you want to decrease some server, you can manually. That's why I was talking, right? Manually come and do the selections like increase and decrease. And there is options like scale based on a schedule. So based on a schedule, like schedule means you want particularly every day, okay, at 5 p.m. you need a server to be added, or you need every Friday or every Monday you need a server to be added every Monday morning, and Friday night it will be removed. So all weekdays you need a server to be there standby, and weekend it will be removed, or in the vice versa. You'll keep in the weekend and you'll remove on the weekdays. So that you can schedule. The next one is the scale based on demand. So when the demand increases, you'll add more resources. It will be automatically be added, and it uses actually the artificial intelligence or some kind of like logics will put there. So it will see based on the demand, it will just add new servers to that, okay, and remove when the demand decreases. And use predictive scaling. Again, this predictive scaling is completely use the artificial intelligence scaling options, like it will predict. Okay, let me just elaborate all these options, but more on this, right? So maintain current instance levels at all times. We can configure our autoscaling group to maintain a specified number of running instances at the all time. Suppose if you see this diagram here, I have suppose 4 web applications running, and in the 4 different instances, 4 different servers. Okay, that means it will be all the time the 4 servers will be there. In case any server goes down, right, what autoscaling will do, it will automatically create or automatically take add another server. So we will all the time see the 4 number of instances or the number of instances you have set up, 5, 10, 11, whatever you want. Okay, so to maintain the current instance labels, Amazon EC2 Autoscaling performs a periodic health check on the running instances within an autoscaling group. So within autoscaling group, it has a health check option. It will automatically do a health check. That means it will check whatever the setups or configurations you have done. It will, based on the configurations, it will do the health check. Suppose we have set up like we need 4 number of instances should be there. So it will be always what autoscaling group do, it will just connect to all the 4 servers, all the periodically check the health of the instances. If it finds everything okay running, then all the 4 will be there. If anything fine, like any server is down or terminated or anything is down or shut down or whatever, it will automatically create another in that place. Okay, so that's why we need the health check mandatory for the autoscaling to work perfectly. So the next one is, when Amazon EC2 Autoscaling finds an unhealthy instances, it terminates that instance and launches a new one. That's what I was telling. If it finds anything unhealthy, like it is not responding properly, it will terminate that instance and create another one in the place of the unhealthy one. Okay, so that will, it will maintain all the time, all times it will maintain the same level of or similar amount of instances. Okay, that's all, maintain current instance levels at all. So the next one will be scale manually. So the scale manually means whenever, suppose as I told, you have to manually scaling is the most basic way to scale your resources, where you specify only the change in the maximum, minimum or desired capacity of your autoscaling group. The first one we saw that it will maintain all the time the same level of same amount of resources available. That means we need only 5 number of instances should be all the time it will be running. In case any server is down, it will automatically create one, but it will maintain 5 number of resources or 4 number of or 10 number of resources all the time. But in this case, it will increase and decrease based on the minimum and maximum number of instances or resources you have set up. Okay, so Amazon EC2 Autoscaling manages, let me do a slide view actually. So suppose we have 3 web servers are running. If automatically, if we need the demand increases, right, or based on the schedule if you have set up, then it will add one more servers or one more servers there, or 5 number servers added. Suppose maximum we have set up 5, it went added and keep on adding up to 5 servers, and then when the demand decreases and it remove those two extra servers added, and it will maintain the desired number of servers. Okay, now that is what the meaning of scale manually. We have to set this one in the where in the auto scaling group. Okay, and the next one is the scale based on a schedule. As I already told you, the scale based on the schedule is means that scaling actions are performed automatically as a function of time and date. That means we are going to select at what particular date or particular time do you want your servers to be scale off or scale down. This is useful when you know exactly when to increase or decrease the number of instances in your group. Okay, so suppose you know already that at night, right? Suppose that US timing, right after 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., you get more customers, okay, to your applications. More customers comes to applications, and that time exactly you see a spike on your server, right? You see a spike on your server, and you want to schedule at particular 9 p.m. IST a server to be added to our auto scaling group, or to be added in our application so that it will maintain the load perfectly. And morning this time there is no load and there is no traffic, then it will remove automatically. So you have to schedule, and you should exactly know what time you need extra amount of resources. Or suppose Sunday as sorry, Saturday, Sunday, right, weekends, right, as normally weekends people are prefer to do shoppings, online shoppings or whatever. They will be sitting at home ideally, and they will be doing some shoppings. Or you have to choose by seeing your nature of your application. Whatever I'm talking just about e-commerce sites, right? It could be your health, health domain, healthcare domain. It could be your finance domain. If your application could be your trading related applications, right? Based on that, you have to choose what kind of auto scaling is best suited for your application, right? So you have to decide. As you'll be a solution architect, you have to be ready to provide the solutions by understanding perfectly your applications, nature of your applications. Before that, you should know what exactly the auto scaling and how it works. Okay, now the next one is scale based on demand. So we saw scale based on a schedule. Now scale based on a demand. So it is a more advanced way to scale your resources using scaling policies. If you have a web application that currently run two instances, and you want CPU utilizations of the auto scaling group to stay at around 50% when the load on the application changes. This method is useful for scaling in response to changing conditions. When you don't know when those conditions will change, you can set up Amazon EC2 auto scaling to respond for you. That means you don't know when the demand increases, right? You don't know when the demand increases, because and the previous one based on a schedule you exactly know and you exactly understand that this particular time your demand increases, and you have to set up the auto scaling group, you have to set up the auto scaling options. But in this case you don't know when your demand increases. Okay, sometimes what will happen, if there is uh, so any kind of product or anything is got popular in the market, and you'll see suddenly more amount of resources and more amount customers will be logged into your applications, or they'll be start using your application suddenly. So you will not know how the demand increases, and when the demand will be increased. So that time better you choose scale of my resources based on the demand. Then who will see what is the demand increases? So for that we have to set off a load balancer. We have to set up a load balancer, and load balancer will see based on the load. Suppose we have two resources and two servers running, and both are having 50%, like the CPU usage or by 50% of load it is taking, right? CPU takes 50%. If that increases, if that increases, what will happen? Or load balancer will send response to the auto scaling group, and based on that the auto scaling group will add automatically one more resources. That I'll show you today also in the lab class, how we can set off both load balancer and auto scaling group together to work for us. Okay, and that's very important, guys. Load balancer and auto scaling, I will always tell you, just refresh and just use this more practice for in the computing section. Okay, the SC2 sections, load balancing, and just have definitely you'll get questions on this whenever you're going for the interviews. Okay, so this is what about the scale based on demand. The next one will be predictive scaling. So the predictive, name itself predictions, like it will based on the predictions it will, and who can predict it? Artificial intelligence, whatever we are seeing in the market, right? People are using artificial intelligence, machine learning to artificially predict something. So predictive scaling, a feature of AWS auto scaling, uses machine learning to schedule the right number of EC2 instances in anticipation of approaching traffic changes. It predicts future traffic, including regularly occurring spikes, and provisions the right number of EC2 instances in advance. As this is a very intelligent option, to scale off new resources in advance. Because so when you'll choose this option, you suppose don't know exactly when there will be a spike. You don't know exactly when the demand will be increases. So what you will do, you will set off the predictive scaling, and the predictions will happen automatically based on the traffics, right? Based on the traffics, regular traffics, like at this particular time you get more traffics or more customers this particular. So the predictions will be all the time be calculated, right? And based on the calculations, based on the predictions it will do the future predictions, like this particular, like think about Ramjan, or think about any festival like our Holi, or our Durga Puja, or sometimes, right? What will happen that particular time, we get more customers, or more things happen, more tradings happens, or more market people come to the online market and virtual market, and they buy or they do trading or whatever it is, right? So the scaling, the predictions happen there, and particularly this time, on this particular day of time, or this particular festival, or this during this month of time, it will predict, and automatically it will add the servers for you in advance. You don't have to worry about that. And again, so whenever we are going any resources adding in advance, we are going to be pay for the extra amount of the resource added. For any cases, if you are adding extra, that's why the load balancer and auto scaling actually, guys, are costly. If companies are able to provide the, because they are just automatically scale up new servers and all, right? Load balancer minimum is required 2 servers, you can add up to 4 or 5 servers. So all the small companies, like the startup companies, they cannot afford more monies on that, so they don't go for this load balancing. If their applications and all are not so sensitive or not so critical, right? And they don't do setup. But most of the big organizations, whatever companies you guys are working, even startup companies also, those were critical and sensitive applications, and they need to be 100% availability of their applications, of their product. They are going to use these options, auto scaling and load balancing. Okay, so that's all about this auto scaling, all the components and the options and all. So do you have any questions to discuss, guys, or any doubt or anything?
I have one question, Ranjit sir.
Yeah, sure, please.
You were saying in the previous slides, one was regarding a schedule,
Mm-hmm.
like we know when to increase our instances.
Yeah.
The second one was like it will auto scale depending on the load.
Yeah.
So I had a little doubt, like how does Amazon predict? Like it assume like instances are full, or any apart from that, it also sees the load are users are increasing on that particular website. How like that's a inside story. How does it try to judge?
Yeah. So a scale based on a schedule and based on demand, right?
No, yeah,
These
yes,
two,
demand, yes, demand,
schedule and
yeah.
demand. So the schedule is something which is you already know, like you already know that this time particularly my CPU usage, okay, my like processor, my memories go high, or I got more amount of resources, more amount of user logged into my application. Okay, so you already know, based on that you'll set up a schedule, like particular Saturday 4 p.m. I need another resources, like more CPUs to be added, more storage to be added, one more, I need one more instances to be added at particular this time. You need another instances to be added at particular this time, so that what you already aware about the schedule. Okay, that is a based on a schedule, you know what time it will be a spike and you will just add it. But the demand, whatever you're telling, yes, so how the demand, you have to set up what number of CPUs, you have to set up a threshold. Okay, suppose how, if you see your CPU utilizes utilizations is goes beyond 60% or 70%. Okay, then what you'll do, you can instruct your auto scaling group to add one more resources. That means that is what on demand, like when the demand increases, like when more users comes, like we can set up like when the users increases more than 100, greater than 100, then increase, add one more server. So you don't have to manually schedule anything, you have to don't have to manually schedule anything. So everything you are giving and setting off in the auto scaling group itself, it will automatically increase or decrease based on the demand. Demand means whether there are more resources coming, more customers coming, number of customers or number of users greater than 100, or my CPU utilization is greater than 60% or 70%, or my storage is greater than 80%, then add one more server to that.
Okay,
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 so you
got
have to
it.
set up.
So one more question, yeah, one
Yeah.
more question I have on top of this, like
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about more number of customers are coming on our website, because we have set scale demand on scale based on demand.
Mm-hmm.
So we as a as a client, like as a company, exactly we don't know, or as a Amazon they don't know. They only know like if instances are getting full, or the processor are getting used
Used.
more,
Yeah.
then we'll have to create one more instances. So
Yes.
but how do we tackle if anybody automate and try to hit a particular website again and again? In
Yes.
that case, because in that case also they will understand like customer has increased.
No. So AWS and Amazon will never count your customer. Okay, that is, they never do that. So they see whatever based on the resources, like utilization, CPU utilization, based on the customer utilizations, you utilizing your application, your resources. Anyway, we are going to get the server from the AWS. So AWS manages all the computing part. So it will see the number of hits to the server, number of hits. Suppose you there are 5 customers hits to the same domain name or same IP addresses. What will happen? AWS will automatically calculate that this number of hits happened today, right? So they can count actually how the number of hits, not the number of customer, number of hits, because the same number of customers will be doing the multiple times, will be connecting, right? So they will not count the customer, they will count the number of hits or number of traffics comes to their server, and based on upon that they will calculate the server utilization or storage utilizations, okay, the resource utilizations, and based on that they'll do the predictions and happen, and they'll increase or decrease the servers. Okay.
Yeah, got it, sir. One more question I
Yeah,
have.
please,
Sorry.
please. Yeah,
Uh,
any number of questions you can ask.
as a
Yeah.
yeah, as a solution architect, how do we judge? Like, because we have to give a solution based on every input. Like, it has to handle a system as well as with a minimal cost.
Yeah.
So, if we like, how do we distinguish between scale based on demand and scale on schedule?
Yes.
Because I believe like scale based on demand will go a little higher for the company. I don't know. Like, I'm not able to catch up that point.
Exactly. So, obvious thing, if you are going for an alto, right? Let me think of a real time example. If you are going for an alto and then going for a Mercedes, right? So you can see the difference, right? Based on your requirement, if you don't need any luxury, if you need only the basic need of a car, like communicate from one location to another location with easy with friends or family, travel, you want to make your travel only easy. But if you want to add more luxury into that, if you want more features to be added, if you're going for a Mercedes car, then you have to pay more for that, right? Similarly, if you are going to set up the auto scaling based on your schedule, if you know the schedule what time exactly being used, you will set off the schedule and you will be going to be created on based on the schedules whatever you have done. But if you're going to use some extra features like predictive scaling, and you if you're going for a demand on demand scaling, right? So what you're going to add some extra features to that, right? So that they will charge you little extra for that. Again, if you are going for a schedule that you are 100% sure that this particular time you need a spike and you need a server to be added, that means it will never go beyond here and there, it will be fixed at particular this time, you a server will be created and you don't have to pay extra cost for that. You have to, as a solution architect, you have to think all the factors, you have to look all the factors, because see, pricing for a company, pricing and cost is most crucial, right? So whenever if you are working for a company as a solution architect, the company actually depend on you, that how you design their architecture, so that from the minimal cost they can get more benefits, right? So out of all these options, you will see which you have to decide, right? You have to think. Suppose you don't understand how what are the things I need to do, so you have to think, you have to first understand out of these 5 options which option is suit for your best suit for your application. Okay. Obviously the best suit will be your Mercedes car, right? The like the predictive scaling, automatical predictions will happen automatically if adding that one. So we don't want, suppose the predictions, because the predictions creates in advance, so it will be little costlier, you have to pay extra amount, even though your customer comes or not, it will create in advance, suppose 1 hour, 2 hours, or half an hours before it created, so you have to pay extra 5 hours of computing power time, right? You have to pay for that. So again, the technology whatever they are using, for that also they will be charging extra pricing for that. So you have to think, uh, first you have to understand what exactly your application is and which option is best suited for your application. Based on that you have to choose, and you have to see the pricing, compare the pricing also. That is most important. You have to first compare the pricing. I'll show you when we'll go to the lab class. I'll show you how to compare the pricing and how we'll see the pricings and all, okay, for auto scaling. And see, the service, auto scaling service, they don't you know um, charge anything. They will not charge, they'll be charging very minimal for this one, okay. But the thing is, in behind, whatever the servers you are using, right, whatever the resources you are going to use, that will be charged, that will be charged. So you are just using the, using a function, using an API, right? And that they are not going to charge. But in behind, in the back end, whatever the servers resources will be created as part of this auto scaling group, you are going to pay for that. So you have to understand all these factors. Okay, Chandan. We'll
Yeah,
see
yeah.
all
Thanks,
this.
Pratik.
We are welcome. Okay, we'll see all these things actually whenever we'll do the lab classes. I'll see, show you how it automatically works, and it will give you the details also. Okay, how it handles and how it works. Okay, so guys, do you have anything to discuss, or we can just go ahead and start the setup, setting up the auto scaling, and we'll see how it works. Okay. So theoretically, you understand what exactly the auto scaling, what are the components available, and why we need those components, and what are the, basically you just have to remember the scaling options. And also there are something called vertical. Sometimes they'll be asking questions, how the auto scaling happens. Sometimes you can say it's a vertically auto scaling and horizontal auto scaling. So the vertically auto scaling is called scale up, horizontally scaling is called scale in. So in the initially I was telling about the scale up and scale in, right? So scale up will be horizontally scaling, like you are adding extra storage, you are adding extra memory to that on top of the existing one. But if you horizontally, sorry, vertically means you are just adding extra on top of that. If you horizontally is adding, that means it will be scale in, you are adding extra on top of the, not on the side of the servers, right? Scale in and scale out. So it will be scale in, scale out, and scale up, scale down. Scale up, scale down will be vertically auto scaling, and scale in, scale out will be horizontal or auto scaling. Okay, just remember these two things. Now let's go ahead and do the lab classes. So just log into your EC2 instances, AWS console, and go to the EC2 dashboard. Okay, choose this EC2 services. You will be in the EC2 services, and you'll find the auto scaling options below in the left hand side panel. Okay, you can see here the auto scaling. One is the auto scaling group, and another one is the launch configurations. Auto scaling group and launch configurations. So in our components, we are discussing about the various components, right? Groups, configuration template, and auto scaling options. We saw about all the options. Now we'll see about the groups and configuration template. Okay, also we'll see how the options we can set up. Now we can see these two components here available itself, like the launch configurations or auto scaling group. Before going to create and set up the auto scaling group, you should first create the launch configurations. Okay, just click on this launch configuration here. Okay, so what happened here, it says create launch configurations. You can, I don't have anything available here. We can either copy to launch template. If you have any template available, you can copy it, or you can just create launch configurations. Okay, so in our last classes, right, previous classes, I had created few launch configurations or launch template. Either, see, two ways: either you can come here and click on this create launch configurations, you can create your configurations, or what you can do, you can go to this launch template on the under this instances, right? You can click on this launch templates, click on this launch template and go ahead and create the templates whatever you have. So I believe you guys still remember how to create the launch template, because in our last class we had seen how to create the templates. We already have this ABC banking and all the templates available. Okay, if you're not sure, let me just go ahead and create one template quickly. Okay, you can just click on this create launch template here and go ahead, just give a template name and give it descriptions, and you need the images, that is what the base image, what base image do you need, and what instance type, like T2 micro T, all the instance type that is required, because that is what the configuration and template is required to scale in another server based on the configurations. That's why launch configuration is must before going to create a launch group. Okay, and key pair, to log into your machine you have to choose the key pairs and all. Okay, now, and the networking, so default you can select it, and the security group, whatever the security group based on your applications, the port you want to whitelisted, you have to select or create a security group rules. And the storage volume, it will be automatically the default storage volume will be added. You can add new storage volume whatever you want. No volume details are currently included in this template because we did not choose the AMI. Okay, so once you choose the AMI, it will be automatically captured. Now you can just go ahead and choose the AMI. Suppose I want for Linux, and I'll go with free tier. Okay, select the free tier one. If you go ahead and check here below, automatically takes the storage 1 ABS volume of 8 GB RAM. Got it? 8 GB memory. That's all. Now go ahead and create launch template. I'm not going to create because I already have few templates available. So this is how you have to create the template. So if I go to the launch templates here, you will see I have two templates available now, and this template is having ABC banking. This is suppose one the project name. But I was also discussing in the last classes how you have to set off your template name based on the project. It will be best ideas to create based on the project. And then what is the default version or the latest version? I have the default versions is currently 1, the latest version is 2. I have two versions of this ABC banking, two different versions and different versions of template, right? So already I have this template and I'm going to suppose use this template. Now if I select, okay, let's select this template, and you can see all the details about the template, what the template is having. Okay, so AMI ID, instance type, right, key name, everything is available here. Storage, if you can see all these details. That's fine. Now it's time to see and go and create one auto scaling group. Now let me go ahead quickly, and you can see it will be landed into the auto scaling group here. And here the pricing, what it says, what I was telling, Amazon EC2 auto scaling feature have no additional fees beyond the service fees for Amazon EC2. That means they are not going to take any additional fees if you are going to use the service. But if you are, when you use the service, it will in the backend it will create multiple servers, EC2 instances. So you have to use this. You are going to pay for this EC2 instances, CloudWatch, right, and all other services or resources what you are going to use. You can create auto scaling group, you can create auto scaling options, all these things they are not going to charge you. But whenever you set up the auto scaling group, you have set up suppose a minimum number of design number of suppose 5. What will happen? It will create 5 servers automatically. then you have to pay for those 5 servers. Okay, now let's go ahead and see how it works. It is having these options, and the image also, whatever I was discussing. If you see this image, right, minimum size and maximum size and desired whatever you need. Okay, suppose desired you need 2 and minimum 2, and you need 4 number of your maximum size, you can set up like. Similarly, it says how it works. Okay, how it works. So benefits and features like availability, what I was telling, cost management, fault tolerance. So it also having the cost management. When we are talking about the cost management, by using the auto scaling, we can literally we can reduce the cost of our project or applications. How? Suppose you don't know, if you set off, like suppose you don't know and manually you set up, like you need all the time 5 servers to be running. If you go and choose this option, right, maintain current instance level at all times, suppose 5 servers will be always running, whether you have customers, whether you have any traffic coming or not, you are all the time you are paying for 5 servers. That is fully waste of your money, right? Because you are, suppose you are not getting any customer, but unnecessary you are paying the resources to the AWS. Okay, but if you, whenever you set off the auto scaling group based on the schedule or based on the demand or based on the predictive scaling, okay, what will happen? It will be automatically scale up, scale down the things, right? So you have to pay how much amount of resources is created as part of the auto scaling. Suppose you need only 2 servers to handle. This time you don't have any load to your servers. You don't have any more much customers, or you don't have much no CPU usage or anything. So why unnecessary pay for 5 resources? It can be handled within 2 servers. So it will automatically create for 2, and other 3 will be standby. Other 3 will be standby. Okay. So what will happen? You can launch whenever you need it. So save money by dynamically launching instances when they are needed and terminating them when they are not. So you can scale in whenever you need, you can scale out whenever it's not required. Okay, that's why the cost management is also this one of the good benefit of using the auto scaling. So as a solution architect, you have to all the things you have to keep in your mind, all the factors. Okay, fault tolerance, detect when an instance is unhealthy, terminate it and launch an instance to replace it. Availability, it ensures application always has the right amount of capacity to handle the current traffic demand. These are the 3 benefits and features. Okay, that's why we go for the auto scaling, right? So how we'll create it? Let's go ahead and create auto scaling group here. Now, so just give a name to the auto scaling group. Suppose I'll give my ASG. It will be auto scaling group, my auto scaling group. And here is the template options, launch template, which templates you are going to choose. Select, suppose I have 2 templates available. Based on your project and requirement, you have to select one template. Select one template here, and the different versions available. Suppose as part of this there will be multiple versions, and choose the version which is suitable or which is required for the application or for your project. Set up it. Now just go ahead, that's all. Just launch the template, select the template, next, and the VPC, and we are not going to create a new custom VPC. We are going to use our default VPC here. And availability zones, subnets, define which availability zones and subnets your auto scaling groups can use in the chosen VPC. So I'll choose for 1A and 1B. So you have to choose, suppose minimum 2 for high availability. You can choose minimum 2 availability zones here. I selected 1A, 1B. Now let's go ahead, and another option here is it's called instance type requirement override launch template. If you want to increase the instance type. Suppose from T2 micro to M4 or any other instance type, you need more computing power. Based on that, you have to choose the instance type, right? If you need more computing power, then if you want to override the template whatever is set up, like the current template is having T2 micro. If you want to add a T2 medium or T2 nano, you can select override and select this other options of launched instance type, and it will override it. Okay, I don't want to override, let it be there. Next, here the load balancing thing I'll show you later. First, let me show you in the simple cases how we can create without a load balancer, and then I'll show you how to set up the load balancer also. I'm not setting up, so no load balancer is required. Now the health check, it will do the EC2 health check. Okay, the server health check every 3 seconds interval. Okay, now additional setting, if you want to add CloudWatch for monitoring and all, you can do the additional setup. Remember, you have to pay for this additional settings, like you have to pay for the servers, you have to pay for the other services part of this autoscaling group, but you are not going to pay extra for autoscaling group setup. But the resources will being triggered or created as part of the autoscaling group, you are going to pay for that. I'm not going to pay extra for this CloudWatch. So once we'll finish up we have a section on CloudWatch also for monitoring the services. That time I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now go ahead and click next. Here is the grouping comes, like group size, and here you have to see the design number of EC2 instances you need. Suppose I need desired 3, suppose minimum 3, and maximum capacity suppose I gave up to 5. Okay, now scaling policies, I selected suppose for the time being none, and I'll show you how you can set up after the autoscaling group is created. So instance scaling protection, I don't need protections now, but instance scaling protection, why it is required? If protect from scaling is enabled, newly launched instance will be protected from scaling by default. That means whatever the instances will be created, it will protect it. Like accidental termination or accidental something, it will be protected. I don't need to enable this. Okay, so next. Okay, so here is the good thing is the notifications, and you have to add these notifications whenever you need to be notified if there is any servers get terminated or anything happened to your server. If you want a notifications, you can go ahead, select the add notifications, and you have to add the SNS topic. There is another service is called SNS, simple notification service. I'll show you how to set up this one also. We have a separate class for this SNS, simple notification service. So how you use it is very simple. You have to create a topic, choose an SNS topic used to be send notifications, and then select that. That's all. Okay, create a topic, select it, and event types. So notify subscribers whenever new instance launched. Suppose you have currently running 3 and one more instances is created 4 numbers, so it will be email to your group or to you that another instance is launched. If it is terminated, it will show you. If it is failed to launch or failed to terminate, these are the event types. Okay, now go ahead and click next. Sorry, I'll remove it because I don't have any SNS topic available to create the notifications. Now go ahead and click next. Add a tag, give a name, something I gave, right? Uh, what happens, it will tag to the new instance. The instance name will be SG server. Okay, now go ahead and next review whatever things are good, and then go ahead, create autoscaling group. Go ahead and create autoscaling group here. What will happen here as soon as you do it? So you can say here, if the status is updating the capacity. So guys, can any of you can tell me what will happen now? I just created the auto scaling group. So what will happen now? We had selected that this desired capacity, like we need 3 servers to be created, right? So what will happen? Automatically, we have not created any server, right? What will happen? Automatically, the auto scaling will launch 3 EC2 instances for us. If I go to the instances, we'll see we'll have 3 EC2 instances will be launched immediately after the CSG server, right? 3 instances automatically created for me. All are running now. 3 instances automatically created for me, right? Okay, so if I go here and check the auto scaling group, and we'll see here the status is still updating the capacity. Let's see, you can see instances 3 has started running, desired capacity 3, minimum 3, and maximum we have 4. So select this one to know more details about this auto scaling group. Okay, so if you can see here all the details available, what are the group setup, what are the launch configurations and template setup. Okay, all this health check also, it does the EC2 health check, advanced configurations, whatever we have done, right? But where the scaling options we can change our setup. So if we can go here, we can see automatic scaling options available here, right? One tab. Just click on this automatic scaling option, and we have different scaling policies here. We can dynamic scaling policies, we can predictive scaling policies, we have scheduled actions, we have scheduled actions, like you can schedule based on the schedule, right? And based on the predictions, and dynamic will be based on the demand, and based on the schedule you can set up also dynamically increase and decrease your schedule. So you can simply go ahead, and suppose you need a dynamic scaling policies. What happens? Dynamic scaling policies use real-time data to scale your group-based configuration metrics. Go ahead, select policy type, suppose target, you can say like simple scaling or target tracking scaling. This target tracking scaling, what will do, it just give a name to that, and this one actually you have to set off. As I was telling, right, based on the CPU, based on the network traffic, based on your load balancer count, all that you have to set off here. Suppose I need average CPU utilization, target value is 50%, or I can give like 70%. If my CPU usage 70%, then it will create whatever instances need this seconds warm up before including in matrix. Suppose 200 300 seconds. Suppose what will happen? 300 seconds. That means we need 300 seconds. It will just warm off the service to start, the server to start. Okay, so after 70% of CPU utilization, it will create one more service. Okay, so let me just give as like if increases 50%, let it be there. I'll show you one example here. Now let's go ahead and create it. Let's go ahead, and what happened? I set up the dynamic scaling policies here. Okay, setup is done. So we'll see, we'll just increase the CPUs, and then we'll see how after 50% whether it is creating one more resources automatically or not. Okay, let's go ahead and details. We have our servers. How many servers? We have our 3 servers running. Okay, and if you see the CPU utilizations of any one of the server, suppose what is the CPU utilizations? If you can go here and go to the monitoring sections of the server here, and it is just getting the data here. So CPU utilization it gives now, just wait, it's just loading the server. Okay, Okay, there are no CPU utilizations currently. Okay, there are no CPU utilizations for this server currently. That's fine. Now, if I go ahead, because we have these three servers running, and as per the template, we had given the user data. So, guys, you remember what is the user data, right? The EC2 bootstrap script. What is that? What is user data? Can anybody tell me what is this user data? What is this user data section and why we need it?
At the time of hello.
Yeah, yeah, please tell me.
At the time of launching the instance, we can install some software uh, that is called Bootstrap.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. That's correct. And thank you, Jyoti. You remembered this. So, whenever you need to do some activity or kind of installations and setups or whatever you need, just during the launch instance, during the instance launch, if you want to install something and deploy something, whatever you want, you can do by using this user data or the bootstrap script. Okay, during the boot. Now, already in the user data sections, I had set off the installations of HTTPD server. Also, I had deployed the index.html file in our as part of the template, launch template, right? As part of the launch template, it was already added. So if I just, sorry, see, this is what was provided. This is what the application index.html file was deployed. What it has, it automatically installed the server and all our servers. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and grab the IP address of all our other servers also, which one I took, okay, let's go this IP address of this server. See, all the servers will be running with the same. So means our applications are currently running on 3 servers. Okay. Now what will happen if I terminate one of the instance? Let me go ahead. Okay. So can anybody tell me what will happen if I terminate one EC2 instance here? What will happen? Go ahead and terminate it. So what will
It
happen,
will
guys?
create a new one as minimum is 3, so it will create one new one.
Yes. So it will create another instances immediately. Suppose it finds there is some issues with this and it terminated. Suppose I manually terminated, but some cases what happened automatically auto scaling group also, if there is the server is not healthy, if it is unhealthy, it will automatically terminate and create another server out from that. Okay. So what happened here? I just terminated one server. What will happen? So it will just do a health check and finds that one server is terminated, and immediately what it will do, it will create another server. See, it created another server. Now it is in pending status, pending state, right? One is terminated and immediately it created one more server here. Immediately it created one more server. So you cannot see all the time we have the desired 3 number of instances, desired 3 number of instances here. Okay, now let me log into one of the server and manually try to increase the CPU. Manually try to increase the CPU and let's see what happening. Okay, let me go ahead, copy this. So here I'm manually just trying to increase some load or increase some resources power into the server, and we'll see how the auto scaling group creating automatically another 4 number of resources. Okay, now what is that? EC2 hyphen user. Okay, so if I see the current CPU usage, right? Current CPU usage, if I do top here, current CPU use is very much okay, it's good. Now, if I just put a command, called while to echo. What happened? I just created an infinite loop by just writing one line script there. So I just put while loop there and put the server into the infinite loop. Okay, so let me go ahead and check the CPU utilization of this server. Let's go ahead to the monitoring section below. Sorry, where it is, monitoring, and you will see a spike on the CPU utilization. Okay, and see, it is actually now 69%. You can see the spike, right? You can see there is a spike in the CPU utilizations, right? Just refresh it, and also it will increase. Still 69%. Now, if I, it is still running, right? It is an infinite loop now. Now, if I go here and check our instances, okay, so it is not creating because we already have other two servers also there. We have other two servers also there which is having minimal load, and it is just handling it. Only one server is has spiked, only one server has spiked, right? So let me do the same things for other servers also. Okay, and we'll see how it is working or not. Let me copy this, and I have other things to show you also, like adding the load balancer. We're getting late. 1 second, SSH. I'll just quickly do this. Okay, I'll just write the same thing also. While to do echo something printing here, done. So it fell into infinite loop, and this is also still running infinite loop, and this is running. Let me connect to another server. Okay, let me connect to the other server. So I just connected to which server? 202 I have connected. This is 202, okay, and this is 169. Fine, 202 is connected already. And this one is 17. Okay, I need to log into this server also. Okay, let me go ahead and get another tab here. Download. Okay, now same thing, let me type here also. Okay, so our three servers are now overloaded. Okay, so let's go and check the CPU utilization of this one. Go to the monitoring. Sorry, let's go to the monitoring. Monitoring of any one of this. It's taking a bit longer than usual. Okay. It is still not calculated. Okay, just wait for a few seconds. It's not has happened actually. So okay, the CPU utilization has not yet calculated. Let's so there's no data available for this. Okay, so it's not calculated. It will take little amount of time to get calculated, and as we don't have real applications running and we don't have real load onto that, so it's not working properly. If the CPU utilization increases more than 50%, okay, we had only one server which increased, but these servers are not increasing, only using this for loop and all, right, infinite loop. So just refresh this page in case anything happening, any activity. Okay, still we have 3. Okay, that means the load calculation is not working properly. The load calculations, we are not able to make our server overloaded. That's fine. So you can now see how we can do set off the auto scaling group. Now, so this is what the auto scaling, suppose you added, let me terminate this, control C. Okay, I don't need this exit, control C, control C. Okay, so what happened here, we have 3 servers there. We saw how to set up the auto scaling group, and it automatically creates based on the design number of and minimum number of EC2 instances. Sometimes what happened, you may need dynamically add servers to your auto scaling group based on the load. So who will decide that? The load balancer. Okay, now see, sorry, I did it the other way, vice versa. So in the load balancer, right, suppose what the load balancer does, it acts as a traffic curve to distribute the traffics to the running and available servers, right? Suppose we have 3 servers, and if the load increases, what will happen, we need another servers to be added to the load balancer, right? So who will do that? The auto scaling group will automatically create one more server for you and will add to the load balancer, right? So we'll see how the dynamically will increase the load balancing in our load balancer by using the auto scaling group. So we can set off in the auto scaling group. We had seen, right, one option was there where we have to set up the load balancer. Okay, so I'll show you this complete project or complete example. I'll just create maybe in another class. I'll just show you how we can set off to increase the servers dynamically in our load balancer. Okay, now you understood completely about the auto scaling group. Now you cannot terminate these servers. If you terminate all these 3 servers also, the auto scaling group will create another 3 servers. So how we'll do that? So if you got any branch, it will automatically create another branch until unless you cut down the root completely, right? So for that, what we have to do, we have to go down and terminate the delete the autoscaling group itself. If we remove the root itself, there will be no branches available, right? Go ahead, select it and delete, type delete here, then it's deleting, the status is deleting. Okay, now if I go to the instance section here, we'll see here it all these three will get terminated now. Just refresh this page, see it is shutting down, right? It will shut down and all the three servers will be now terminated. By means making the autoscaling group active and keeping the autoscaling group there, you cannot delete the servers, because based on the group set of like desired and minimum, it will always makes your the same amount of servers available. So you clearly understood how it works, right? So in our next class, we'll see how we can see add more servers into that, or else what we'll do, also we'll just go ahead and continue with our DevOps journey. We yet to start, so we already have completed our source code management and remote and Git and GitHub. Okay, we are yet to cover the Jenkins. So guys, we are getting actually a few projects, maybe we need a few more resources, okay, to join. So that's why I'll just try to cover this tools quickly, and I'll just train you on that. Maybe any one of you can join some of project I'm getting, maybe you can join into that, okay. But it will take another maybe few weeks to complete. Maybe I'll start with Jenkins immediately tomorrow, so that we can cover few DevOps tools, okay. uh, okay, fine guys, that's all for today. We'll see you tomorrow and start the class.